Hey folks, John Master May here. Wanted to create a video series for everyone out there who's an indie developer to help you understand a little bit about the business implications. In this particular series, what I want to do is kind of give you a sense of what it's like to either build a startup or indie gaming studio. Two different things. You could do both right there, but I tend to think actually, given what my own experiences have been, it's almost better to try to keep those two separate. Now, before I even get into business talk, what makes me qualified for you to want to listen into my yibber yabber jibber jabber? Now, I have the great fortune of actually starting both startups and indie game development studios over the years. 5 different companies over the last 10 years or so. Been in the game industry for now about 20 years. In the past, I kind of thought an indie studio and a startup were really kind of one and the same. After all, right? Small company, grow it from nothing to trying to build something big. But I think the distinctions actually are pretty important now. So I thought it'd be useful for me to at least shed some light into what I learned over the years, what worked and what didn't, and hopefully this is helpful for you. I really kind of want to take a look at why we get into the business of creating, right? Something drives us to want to put code and art together and mush it up till something comes out that looks like a game. Sometimes it's a very personal reason why you create, and other times it's all because of money. Now, for most of you, that's probably some combination of the two. That can kind of create a bit of a blurry line of which side you lean on. Hopefully, this will help clarify a little bit in terms of which way you lean. Now, most people form an indie gaming development studio because there's something very personal about what they want to create, right? It's an idea, it's an expression of themselves, perhaps it's even like a diary of their own lives. Perhaps there's a statement they want to make and they have to get it out there and share it with the world. It could also be very niche as a result of that. A game that perhaps may have no scale in terms of sales, it may reach a very limited audience, and that's perfectly okay with you. At the end of the day, right, the whole point is as long as you can make money to sustain your habit or perhaps even profession, then all the power to you. However, you shouldn't think of it as something that needs to scale to become a big startup. When the idea comes from within, one of the benefits is that you kind of create your own pace. Come up with the idea, how you want to come up with it, work on it whenever you want to work on it, find different kind of people that you enjoy working with on it. In many ways, putting the business implications secondary towards just trying to make sure the company does well enough till the next product. Now, doesn't mean you can't think of good ideas and big ideas. However, I think that when you're looking for something like creative freedom, the ability to kind of tell your own stories, then you do need to be cautious about trying to position yourself as a startup. Now, a startup, at least in the definition of what you see in Silicon Valley, has a very different purpose. Teams oftentimes form because of an idea that they have that they want to use to solve a very specific problem. Perhaps there's a market opportunity that's hot that no one else is tapping into, or perhaps you see something growing that is untapped. The point is that it allows you to think about what the problem is first and then form the right team to solve that problem. Makes choices around who you hire very different. But it also means that when you get around to the nuts and bolts of it, which is what if the problem you're solving doesn't exist? What if it's been difficult to actually prove? In a startup, you have to constantly think about what is it that you needed to pivot to allow you to get into the right position to grow the company. Because inevitably, most startups are funded, supported by investors who expect you to not only tap into a big opportunity, but tap into a really big opportunity. Right? We're talking about like a time 10's return in their investment, which means that you can't just come up with any old idea. It has to be an idea of scale. To give you a better idea of whether or not you should build a startup or any game development studio. Let's say I have a game idea that I've always wanted to make. I want to call it Mr. Krabs Adventures. It's a game about this dude. He stumbles home drunk one night because he drank too much, and he meets this gal on the street. And she's a lovely gal, of course, right? Because that's the only kind you meet at 3 a.m. in the morning. And her name is Bunny Muffins, right? And, Bunny Muffins, is, of course, is a very lovely name. And so next thing you know, you wake up next morning, you don't know where you are. All you know is that your nether regions is on fire and it's itchy, and you look down and sure enough, it's a seafood platter down there, right? You got crabs clawing all over you. Of course, then you got to go track down this Miss Bunny Muffin here, trying to find out what kind of STD she's got, how you're going to cure it, and you're going to travel around the city on these grand adventures solving your little burning crotch syndrome. So yeah, that might be better as an indie game, and I'm willing to bet there's some people out there who would love to play that game, and you're going to build a great game, and they're going to love you for it, and everything's grand. Now imagine taking that idea into an investor and having them listen to you about crabs, right? Not the kind you sell from the seashore, but the kind that makes it all itchy down there. Probably not going to fly. Now, if you take a step back, and you think about what that idea means, perhaps you're onto something that could be a startup. Perhaps you realize that the mobile gaming market is changing, that it used to be all about casual gamers, but now you have a lot of these core gamers who have really advanced phones and big phones, and they want some games that play great and take advantage of that latest hardware. So now you have these group of guys who want to play games on the go and expect a core experience, and they're mature, right? They're 35 years and plus, and you see some data that says this market for mature gamers on mobile is exploding 20% every single year. And they're upset on the fact that the only kind of games they can play is Candy Crush or Bejeweled. Well, now you might be on to a startup opportunity, because now you can frame this in a way that says, hey, you know what, I'm going to go after this mature gaming market. And the kind of games we make is not for kids, and they're going to love it. And this particular segment of the market spends 3 times more than the average mobile gamer, and they want it on the go because as you travel around the city, it's synced up with your GPS, and they can interact with the different sort of things they see around their city. Now, suddenly, what you have here is a really interesting potential market opportunity, and perhaps the game that you've been thinking about can be reframed to solve that. At that point, the investor's thinking less about like what the game idea is, but they're thinking about the fact that no one else is tackling this market. You seem to have a good understanding of it, and you have a good team to tackle it, and it's growing and it's big one day. That's when you think about building a startup. So I hope that's useful for you all. It's a really interesting way to kind of think about which way you want to go, right? When you think about your game idea and you think about the market opportunity. And if you can't reconcile those two, it's always better just go for one versus the other, because trying to do both suggests a lot of work in terms of all the paperwork and structure and investments that you need to acquire to run a startup, versus as an indie studio, you're really trying to like keep yourself true to your idea and to your market and to your fans. It doesn't have to be both. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. So hope that's useful in this first part of the series. Next time I'm going to go into something else a little bit different. Peace out, guys. It's John Master Lee here, signing out.